I think this movie, what makes this movie great, is it is the best of till this point. I mean, this is Bond number 10, right? This is the 10th Bond film. This is the best of Bond. This movie is to me because it like has all these different tropes and all these different things that are in all these other Bond movies, and it has some really good stuff that it does really well. So I'm going to list a couple of these things real quick. So from Russia with Love, you have a train fight sequence again, but this one's great because Jaws is just a formidable villain, and he's like, he's a huge
His
dude.
hand is the size of Bond's head.
It's amazing, and he's crushing it. That's amazing. Also, you have the Russian involvement, right? Like you have. It's very tied in with Russia, much like From Russia with Love is. And not to mention, I love how they even kind of go back to that film as far as the general's office looks very similar to Kleb's office. Looks very similar.
It's just an empty space with one
chair.
desk.
With one chair kind of really creepily in the background. You also have some callbacks to Thunderball. There's a very brief underwater sequence with the Lotus, but that whole sequence is also really well. Like that sequence is great. Perfect. It's even better than most of the action in Thunderball.
They went back and filmed it in Nassau, which is interesting.
Nassau.
And that obviously we'll talk about the car and that whole thing, but that car's, that submarine actually worked and everything. It was a working sub. It probably didn't actually transform from a car to a sub. They probably built a submarine essentially that looked like that. But that whole thing looks amazing. And then you have the Only Live Twice. Yes, there's the whole ship capture.
I'm glad they didn't show it right away. I'm glad it was secret and then revealed later.
Because that took up a lot of screen time in the last movie. So it's like a mystery where it went.
Yeah. And then, and because it's like, people would be like, is this the same? I've seen this movie.
And we get more shutters.
I noticed that. I was like,
the return of shutters.
The return of the shutters.
Stronger shutters.
We never have anybody say...
Nobody says close the shutters. They just say something like seal the room or something like that. But I wish they said more shutters. But you have a sequence.
Okay, wait. Another fan edit. Boom.
Open shutters.
Close the shutters.
Close shutters.
Okay, go ahead.
That sequence is it plays off very similarly to You Only Live Twice.
Stop that astronaut. Bring him to me. Stop that astronaut!
Bring those two prisoners here.
But I think it does it much better, and it's a better movie because we have submarines, we don't have spaceships. It's not about oh my God, you took the spaceship. It's more about, oh no, the submarines have nuclear missiles on them, and they're going to shoot nuclear missiles at the United States and Russia. And then we get to Our Majesty's Secret Service references. Of course, we have skiing in the beginning of this movie. There's callbacks to Tracy Bond and how that you can actually emotionally see how that still affects Roger Moore, or even the Roger Moore James Bond, but it still affects James Bond. And he's like, yeah, we're not going to talk about that.
Many lady friends, but married only once. Wife killed.
All right, you've made your point.
You're sensitive, Mr. Bond.
About certain things, yes.
He has to fake a profession, much like he does in Our Majesty's Secret Service, where instead of being heli, he has to fake, oh, I'm a marine biologist, and he even has that great moment with Stromberg, and Stromberg's like, do you know what that fish is? And he's like, of course, it's a lionfish,
I don't mean to interrupt you, but that whole, did he get an invite from Stromberg to go there? I don't understand how he
requested
got
an
there.
audience.
Yeah, they knew it's Stromberg because they see it on the microfilm.
Yeah.
And so Stromberg's she even says he's a Western capitalist, and so they already know that they can get something out of this guy because they're like, oh well, hey, by the way, can we request an audience to see you guys? So I would imagine that's kind of the link to it. It's not very strong in the movie, of course, but
I would think a bad guy who's plotting to blow up the world wouldn't be like, oh yeah, I'll invite a marine biologist into my secret base thing.
Okay, so
that was weird.
Imagine you're Stromberg and a marine biologist reaches out to you, and it's a guy who is okay. I'm trying to talk about this without getting to Stromberg's motivations. We'll save that for later. But basically, Stromberg is clearly insane. That's why I made my dolphumanoid joke. Why does this guy want to create Waterworld? He must just be insane. Whereas With Spectre, it's all about extortion. Stromberg says explicitly,
Waterworld.
I'm not interested in extortion. I just want to create Waterworld.
Yeah.
And so he's clearly insane, but a marine biologist would be like a butt buddy for him. You know? So it's like, it makes sense that he would invite him. Now, what Bond didn't realize was that Jaws had survived getting his ass kicked out of a train, so Jaws ends up fingering them to Stromberg, and then that's when Stromberg's like, send everybody to kill them in one sequence. Which, real quick,
was an awesome sequence.